This video is going viral on X, and she is asking, why is it that only 27% of Black women are married in America? Now, people have come up with all different types of reasons, and I will show you an expose that I saw years ago on ABC, where they spoke to Black women who were professionals who were struggling, I guess, to find, a husband. And even though that was years ago, I'm going to show you that just to show you how, once again, this subject has come back up again in the US. And at the end of the day, I'm going to tie it all to math, because I, for one, don't believe that men are just sitting back and they're like, I do not find Black women physically attractive. Everybody has like their type, right? But I don't like that. I haven't had that experience. I don't think that's what this is really about. I think a lot of this comes to basic math. Now, this is the video that is going viral. We're going to go ahead and bring it in here, because once again, this subject is back in the headlines.
26% of Black women today in America, at least, are married. 26%. There's a reason for that. And it goes down to perceptions we have about marriage. Submission is seen as, the submission is seen as some old patriarchal, domineering, disrespectful, oppressive idea. So they get in these marriages and they want to box with their husbands as soon as they don't agree. They don't want to yield. They want to do their own thing. They want to remain single in marriage. And that doesn't work very well. Because like I said, at the end of the day, no man wants to feel like they're married to somebody who's competitive or who's their competition. And that's what this is looking like. It looks really bad. It's really bad. Okay, so now I want to bring up, to continue this point, I want to bring up another clip that I saw of her giving advice to the younger generation.
So we pause it here. So this is the video that's giving people like vibes, and people are seeing this and they're like, is this real? Is that number true? So the number has changed over the years. I'm going to show you the difference, but I gotta say a couple of things before we get into what that number used to look like, right? Because years ago it was 42%, right? So let's talk for a second. First and foremost, many people will ask, has that been your experience? That has not been my experience. However, I do have friends that have had that as part of their experience. And as I told you earlier, I do not believe that the majority, the number one reason is, people just don't find Black women physically attractive and da-da-da. That is not what I believe. I believe a lot of this comes down to simple math. When you look at a person's certain type, right? Black women, the studies show Black women are more likely to choose to date or to marry. Let's go with marry. They're more likely to choose to marry a Black man more than any other group. But do the numbers reflect that? So I'm going to take you back to this segment on ABC. This is really interesting, right? I saw this on TV when it came out. Now, this is like over 15 years ago. 42% of Black women are unmarried. Check this out.
It's just not that easy. For starters, there are more Black women than Black men, 1.8 million more. So even if every Black man in America married a Black woman today, 1 out of 12 still wouldn't make it down the aisle. Let's take 100 Black men. If you eliminate those without a high school diploma, those without a job, and the number of Black men between the ages of 25 and 34 who are incarcerated, that leaves only about half of Black men eligible to pop the question.
Let's go back to those numbers. Now, this was 15 years ago. And this is what I've been trying to explain to people. If you go back to what I said before, right? That
half of Black men.
54% eligible. So if you go back to what I said in the beginning, that Black women, most Black women are more likely to marry a Black man. Okay. Now think about the numbers that they just gave you. So this is including, there's more Black women than there are Black men. Then you have to remove those who are already married, those who are already taken. Don't forget the prison, the prison and industrial complex. I've talked about this before on the show, the school to prison pipeline. So that's two. Some people marry people in prison, but most people don't. Let's just be real. Then you have to think about those who just don't want to be married and they want to be bachelors like forevers. It is what it is. That's 3. Then you also have to remove those who are not straight. Like, so you have to remove Black men that are LGBTQ, right? So the number, think about everything I just said. The number is going to continue to decrease of the men that are available to you. So you're working with the smaller pool. That's why I say a lot of this is basic math. Now, some people see this and they'll say, oh, well, Sabby, what do you know? You're married. I am, but I wasn't always married. Some people say to you, oh, Sabby, what do you know? You're not married to a Black guy. No, I'm not. But again, I wasn't always married. Once upon a time, I did date. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go on a little bit more in this segment because I want you to see the women that they sit down and they talk to. All of these women have professional jobs, very smart. And I want you to hear some of the things that they say. Again, this was 15 years ago. And you tell me if this still holds true today.
And eligible to pop the question. Nicole sees the problem every day.
It is sad to see that the majority of the defendants that we prosecute are Black males. Those numbers can be very disappointing.
Admittedly, the selection of men is slim.
Get it through your head. You're the Friday girl that's just for sex. That's what you are.
We broached this serious dilemma with comedian turned relationship guru Steve Harvey, author of the book Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man.
There are still a lot of good men out there who are being overlooked.
Harvey says Black women don't have to settle, but may need to compromise.
You a corporate exec? Does he have to be a corporate exec? You make $150,000 a year. He has to make 150 or above? That's your requirement?
So one of the things that Steve Harvey brings up here is that maybe the women are being too selective. But I want to play devil's advocate here for just a second, because I remember when I was in undergrad, and I remember a lot of the women were selective, okay? Like I remember regardless, Black women, white women, a lot of the women were pretty selective. And if we go back to the math, we go back to the numbers. When I was in college, the male to female ratio was not cool. There were way more women at my college than there were men. So you already have a shortage. And that's for everybody. I went to the university. I graduated from the University of South Carolina. There were more women than there were men, regardless of color. So there wasn't a guy for every woman at college. There just wasn't. And then again, you got to go through those deletions, right? You got to remove the ones that are already in a relationship. You got to remove the ones that are LGBTQ. You have to remove the ones that are not interested in having a partner. And I bring up college because what I notice from my experience is that most of my female colleagues that are married their husband that they married, they met in college. I have 3 comrades I know from high school that married their high school sweetheart, but that's not as common nowadays. But only 3 of them that I know that married their high school sweetheart. One of them is divorced. People change. But most of my comrades that I know from college married the guy that they were in a serious relationship with in college. So if there is already a shortage of men at college, you're already working with the deficit. This is why I say math plays a part in that. Now, let's add on to that deficit a little bit, because like I told you, most Black women prefer to marry a Black man. So now if there are we'll just use short numbers, like smaller numbers to make it easier. If there are 100 women at said college and there are 30 men, and let's say 10 of them are already in a relationship, let's say 5 of them may be LGBTQ. There's 15 guys left and there's 100 women. And then if your choice is to marry a Black man, let's say out of those 30 guys that, let's go a little bit generous, let's say 10 of them are Black. So you're working with a deficit, right? Now, here's what I'm not going to do, because I think people are expecting me to do this, and no, it's not happening. What I am not going to do is to tell you that you need to go date someone that is not Black, right? People have their type, people have their preference. You're attracted to what you're attracted to. I'm not one of those people that's going to tell you to go do that. But I do want you to understand that there is a deficit. You are working with more women and less men. Now, let's look at these women that they talked to 15 years ago. Professional women, I want you to hear what they said.
What we looked at were the large numbers of professional Black women who groomed themselves for success with BAs, MDs, and JDs. 70% of them are still without the more elusive title, MRS.
I would be lying if I said that I don't have fleeting thoughts of, okay, I'm 32, my clock is ticking.
The tick-tock of the biological clock is getting louder for several of Nicole's single friends. Meet Chateau Waters. She's a 32-year-old high school counselor pursuing a doctorate degree in psychology.
We have this thing called the Black girl curse. A lot of our white friends are married by 25, like happily married, kids by 27. And we're like, what is the deal with the BGs? You know,
that part is really interesting, right? So I can respond to that as well. That is something I did notice. Most of my white female colleagues got married pretty early. Like, granted, I went to school in the South, so just take that as an example. They're also in the South, so keep that in mind. But I can't count how many weddings I went to before I was 26. Can't count. But again, they married the guy that they were in a relationship with when we were in college. So they had already been together for like 4, 5, 6+ years. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, think about what she just said and think about the numbers that I just gave you. Once again, if she said they were already married by the time they were 25 and you're going back to college, there is already a deficit. We've covered on this show before that more Black women are going to undergrad and pursuing master's degrees and getting higher education. That hasn't changed from when I saw this video. That has continued to increase. And women are saying that they're not seeing that same ratio when it comes to their potential partner at college. So how do you solve this? Because I don't like to leave people with this is the problem and what do you do about it? One of the things is you try to meet people in different places, right? At school, I feel like we're lucky because like when you're in high school, you're put in a building with people, said classmates, you guys have gym, you guys have all this kind of stuff. So you're put in a space together. When you go to college on campus, you are put in a space together. After you leave college, things are a little bit different. You may move to a new city. You may live in a different type of community. You may, I don't know, maybe you're spending a lot of time at work. So you may not be able to have as much time to have extracurricular activities like you used to when you were an undergrad. These things happen, right? So where can you meet people? A lot of people cringe at this, but nowadays, the big one is online. The big one is the social like dating apps. And I know some people that have had success on those apps, but I also know some people that have some crazy, wild stories by dating people on those apps. But that's one place where you can meet people. The other one is church. You know, if you go to church, if that's your thing, you can meet people at church. You can also meet people at other social like activities, etc. Sporting events, sports is a big one. You can meet people at like basketball games, football games, that type of thing. But it's tricky because at the same time, you don't want to make it seem like you out there looking for somebody if you're going to a basketball game. And oftentimes I think these things happen when you least expect it to. I didn't even expect to get married. It just happened. Like literally, like when I moved to Massachusetts, I didn't move here and say I was looking for somebody. It happened when I least expected it to. And I think sometimes that can be like the best case scenario when you're not looking and it just happens, right? And I want to hear from the men on this one too. Some of the things that I have heard from men is that they feel like there's nothing that they can offer you if you already have everything. So let's go back to the college thing again. If the numbers continue the way that they are, where there's more Black women in college than Black men, it could be possible that there could be some type of an intimidation factor. If a guy meets you and he sees that you have a bachelor's degree, you have a master's degree, you have a condo, you have everything that you need, he may be tempted to ask, what can I do for you? How can I help you if you already have everything? That's some of the things that I've heard from people. That doesn't mean don't go to school. That doesn't mean don't have a career, but it's just something to think about. Listen to what else they say.
And it's the Black girl.
Jaqueen Ashford is a chemist for a pharmaceutical company. Now that she's 34, she's lowered the bar when it comes to height requirements.
I don't have a certain criteria, like if you're not 6'5", and I used to, but then as I got older, I said, okay, well, maybe if you're 6'3", 6'2", 6'1", okay, maybe we could see eye to eye. I kind of have certain standards that I hold myself to, and I don't feel like I should have to settle on those.
Okay. And then there's things like this. Now, again, this still was 15 years ago. I don't know. All of these women could be married today, as far as I know. I really don't know. But at the time, they were not. And they said they were looking for someone and they wanted to get married. This type of requirement where someone has to be 6'5". First of all, most men are not. I don't even think most men are 6'2". So that's a high requirement. Now, I'm assuming this woman here, maybe she's tall. She's sitting down, so I don't know. Maybe she's tall, but I think that's a bit much. I think that's a bit much. 6'5", 6'6", or whatever. I mean, come on. Those are like basketball player like heights. So most men are not that height. Someone said 5'9" is the average. So there you go. Yeah. So that is going to make it. That's going to make it harder for you.
For the sake of having somebody, I'm willing to wait.
Like many Black men, she's also open to dating outside her race. In fact, in the past decade, the number of Black women entering interracial marriage has more than doubled.
In fact, last night, was at a restaurant, had a great conversation with this Caucasian gentleman. I mean, we were vibing, we were clicking. I'm thinking, he's gonna ask for my number. White men never ask for my number. And he was like, all right, well, great conversation. You know, maybe I'll see you around. And I was thinking, what happened?
Ask for his.
No.
Bossy Black girl. We're maybe not as coveted as Black men in society.
Melinda Watson is a 28-year-old payroll specialist. She hasn't had an exclusive relationship since college.
I just feel that there's a lot of taboo associated with dating Black women because I don't think that they're necessarily going to want to take us home to see mama.
The consensus in this group was that their preference is to marry a Black man. It's not that they can't find one to date. The issue in many cases is exclusivity.
You meet these great guys, you have good relationship, good rapport, and then it's almost like, I'm going to keep you around, and hopefully when I'm ready to settle down, you'll be there.
That's the back pocket.
The back pocket thing. So then I would say that maybe that's not a good guy. I don't know. Like, look. We all know out there, those of us that have been dating or have, dated in the past. Yeah, there are going to be some people that you date that are going to be committed and are going to want that. And there's going to be some people that you may go on a date with or whatever that don't want that. But what was kind of weird to me is that she said, well, he's a great guy, but he said, I'm going to keep you in my back pocket. I'm like, because I feel like that tends to be a little bit more obvious from the get-go, from me. So again, this topic is brought back up into the spotlight again. And I just think that there's a lot of finger pointing. It's Black women's fault, it's Black men's fault, and da-da-da. But when you look at the numbers just aren't there. The math just isn't there. Another thing I noticed too is that they brought up the part about interracial dating. I do remember this as well from college when I was in undergrad. It did seem like guys tended to be just more open in general. It seemed like guys tend to be a little bit more open about dating different types of women, right? Whereas the women tended to be a little bit more, no, like, this is my type, this is what I want, like, etc. And I don't really know like how to fix all of that, because like I really do feel like it's a math issue. I feel like it's a numbers issue. And I feel like in order to fully fix that, you have to fix the numbers. Because if the numbers aren't there, then no, there isn't going to be a Black guy for every Black woman, because the numbers don't show that. And then the reality is not everybody wants to get married. Believe it or not, some women that I know personally told me they never want to get married. I know guys that said they never want to get married. And I think, each to his own. If that's what they don't want, that's what they don't want. But what I find interesting is that once again, this topic is back up in the news. And sometimes I wonder, what is the goal of the media? Why do they keep bringing this up every couple of years? The video I just showed you is from 15 years ago. This isn't the second time it's been brought up after this. It's been brought up before. So why does the media keep bringing it up? Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.